When I set my wedding date, I made an unexpected decision. None of my 4 siblings would be invited. It was my way of paying them back for what I went through at each of their ceremonies. Let's go back to the beginning. Leonardo, the oldest, kicked off the run of weddings when I was only 10. His choice, a kid-free party, seemed reasonable to the grown-ups, but to me it felt like being shut out. I liked the bride, I wanted to be there, but I never even got close to the church. 2 years later, it was Fernando's turn. Same script, short guest list, no kids allowed. I was 12, perfectly capable of sitting through dinner, but I was still left out. The third trip down the aisle was Beatrice's when I was 15. This time I thought, now I'm in. Wrong. The family convinced her it would be easier to keep the rule for everyone. I asked for an exception. I got a hard no. I threw a fit, yelled, and wound up grounded for 6 months. The last of the weddings was Marcelo's, but by then, my heart was numb. I scrolled through the photos online and moved on. Now, grown and about to slip into my own white dress, I remember every door that was shut. I don't hold a grudge, but I've learned how much choices weigh. So I'm having a small ceremony with only the people who showed up when I needed them most. This time, they'll be the ones missing. And that's how my story comes to the altar. Not out of revenge, but out of consistency. After all, some invitations, when they never show up, teach more than you'd think. I was 17 when Gustavo, my youngest brother, got married. I knew what was coming. Another no-kids wedding, and I was out. When the invitation never came, my parents pretended to be surprised. My barely adult cousin got the call, and me, nothing. I sent a dry congrats by text and went back to my room where I spent the rest of the day with my fiancé. Years later, I'm the one about to get married. Remembering every snub, I decided to return the favor. None of my siblings would get an invite. When they noticed the empty mailbox, the family group chat lit up. Beatrix fired the first question, hinting at lost mail. Fernando went straight to the point, asking why the invite hadn't arrived. I read it all in silence, let the blue checkmark show I'd seen it, and moved on. After all, this time I got to choose who was in or out. The next morning the phone rang. It was my mom. The second I picked up, she snapped, furious. Why hadn't I invited my siblings? I took a deep breath before answering. Calmly, I told her they hadn't included me in their weddings. I thought it was only fair. Silence. She tried to process, then exploded. She asked if my fiancé had put me up to this, saying that I, so sweet, now sounded like someone else. I almost laughed. Once again, my mom would rather blame someone than admit I might be right. I pressed on. Mom, it's my choice. If I wasn't important on their big days, they don't need to be on mine. She slammed the phone down. Typical. The next day, the notifications wouldn't stop. Leonardo sent a dramatic text. Mariana, you were just a kid when you missed my wedding. Nothing personal. I thought you'd gotten over it. Get over it? I spent my childhood sidelined at their biggest moments, and now I'm supposed to pretend it didn't hurt? I replied, it's not about grudges, it's about fairness. If I didn't matter then, why should you matter now? He shot back fast, calling me spoiled and preaching that family comes before resentment. Family? Where was that family when I was a little girl begging to be at their weddings? They showed up unannounced one random afternoon, convinced a single talk would make me cave. One sentence in and I could tell they cared about appearance, not me. What will people say about us, Mariana? My mom blurted out. Who leaves their own siblings out of their wedding? It was like I'd committed a crime. I took a deep breath and tried, one more time, to remind them of all the times I'd been ignored. My dad cut me off mid-sentence. Stop acting like a child, this is pure selfishness. That was the last straw. Childish and selfish? I was a child when I begged to go to their weddings and you called me dramatic. Now you want to pretend nothing happened. Not happening. They're not invited, and if you keep pushing, maybe neither are you. Total silence. Mom went pale. Dad turned red. Without another word, they stood up and slammed the door. Over the next few weeks, messages poured in, resentful, ungrateful, destroying the family harmony. My siblings tried to shame me too, but with every accusation, the memory of that slammed door only made my decision stronger. Right up to the last minute, my relatives tried to sway me. They talked about my nieces and nephews, swore the kids dreamed of carrying the rings, said I'd be cruel to stick to my choice. This time I stayed silent. On the big day, I felt a new kind of lightness. The ceremony went exactly how I'd pictured, intimate, warm, full of faces genuinely happy for us. As I spun around the dance floor with my husband, one thought stuck. I was finally steering my own story. Later I heard that, at the same time, my mom hosted a private dinner for my siblings. A quiet, almost childish protest. They could toast each other. It didn't change the fact that, for the first time, I had drawn my line, and it set me free. I thought the wedding would put an end to the mess. The flowers, the music, the food, everything had been perfect. I didn't miss anyone, but the calm didn't last. A few days later, barbs started popping up in the family chat. The first was from Beatrix. "We saw some photos. Why did those flowers look so plain?" I took a deep breath. "Ignore it. Reply." The irritation was rising, but I knew the next choice was mine too. My phone buzzed. A message from Fernando. "And the venue? It looked like a thrown-together party, not a wedding. Why didn't you ask for our help?" He didn't know I'd blocked everyone. Even so, the photos had circulated through mutual friends. Suddenly, everyone had opinions about a day I'd chosen to live without them. I held back the urge to reply. It wasn't worth it. Soon after, the screen lit up again. Now it was my mom, straight to the point. "Mariana, what kind of wedding was that? I expected more from you. Everything's so simple. Your sister did way better. Why wasn't it in a church? That dress? Our family deserved something grand." I was speechless, not because of the criticism, but because of how cold she was. I inhaled, counted to 3, and when my voice came out, it was low and steady. "Mom, the only thing unworthy here was you." Silence. I held my breath. So did she. On the other end, nothing but her own disappointment echoing back. That's when I realized my wedding didn't need their approval. It never had. It was about me, about the love I celebrated in the simple way that bothered everyone but me. I hung up. In the dark screen, I saw my reflection and smiled. For the first time in a long while, that image was enough. The phone vibrates. Without an invitation, my mom pops up on the screen. "You weren't even invited and you're already criticizing? You saw pictures of something you weren't supposed to see. If you didn't like it, that's your problem. I didn't plan anything with you in mind." She takes a breath. Steady. "Selfish, Mariana. Are you going to erase your family from your life? That's not normal. Always resentful. Now you're taking it out on us. What did we do to deserve this? Enough." I hold my breath and let it out, straight. "Want to know what you did? You ignored me at every key moment. I was shut out of my siblings' weddings. Now you want a spot in mine? Inviting you would be the only possible disaster." On the other end, silence. A second of hope. Shattered. "Ungrateful. We gave you everything. You're dropping your family for a man you barely know. You'll regret it." I don't let the call finish. I hit end. The beep echoes in the room, but the decision is already made. Everything started when I realized that arguing with someone who never admits being wrong is like talking to a wall. I left the conversation, but the conflict wasn't over. The family group chat exploded. Beatrix struck first. "You broke the family, Mariana. You pushed away the people who loved you." Right after, Fernando came with his usual drama. "Hope that husband is worth it, because you lost everything for him." I read every word in silence. My husband beside me sensed my discomfort but chose not to step in. As soon as I finished, I left the group without answering. Empty debates don't interest me anymore. Then came days of missed calls and ignored texts, until one afternoon my mother showed up at the door, unannounced. "Mom, there's no point," I said, blocking the entrance. "All you do is criticize and put me down. I don't want that anymore." From outside, she raised her voice. Family is forever, Mariana. You can't cut us off just because you're hurt. I cracked the door open and answered, family should be support, respect, and love, not manipulation and constant criticism. If that's all you've got, then yes, I can cut you off. I closed the door. For the first time, the silence that followed sounded like freedom, a period worth more than 1,000 explanations. I slammed the door, and I could still hear her yelling on the other side. I didn't respond. In that instant, I'd already decided to cut out what hurt me for good. Since then, I haven't picked up calls or replied to messages. The few attempts to reconnect came loaded with accusations, and finally, I had no room for that. Over time, their absence turned into relief. In silence, my husband and I redesigned our routine. Quiet nights, talks that end in laughter, plans that fit the two of us. I discovered respect can be the foundation of a home. Months passed, and life surprised me. The test was positive, and my eyes filled with tears. He hugged me and said, "We'll raise our child surrounded by love. Nothing will be missing." In that hug, I knew no choice had ever felt so right as walking away. Today I breathe deeply and feel peace. I carry no guilt or longing for what's gone. I have a serene present and a future growing inside me, proof that sometimes closing a door is the step you need to finally live at home. My husband and I set a simple rule even before the pregnancy test showed 2 lines. Our child would only be around people who truly cared. In practice, that ruled out almost all of my family. The news, however, spread. I don't know if it came from a distant cousin or a childhood friend, but within days, my phone turned into a notification board. The first was from my mom. "Mariana, I heard you're pregnant. We're your family. Having grandparents nearby is important for the baby." I left the message unanswered. It wasn't revenge, it was self-protection. I grew up breathing the same toxic air I now swear to keep away from my child. Soon after, my siblings' texts arrived. Beatrix went for subtle guilt. "Congrats, sis. Fights aside, we're still siblings. I know you'll need support. We're here for you and the baby." Fernando, as always, skipped the niceties. "Hang on to your grudge if you want, but let us meet our nephew. He deserves to know he's got a big family." I read every word in silence. Beside me, my husband squeezed my hand, reminding me we weren't alone in this choice. I took a deep breath and turned off the screen. There was a lot of noise outside, but inside our home reigned the calm I never had as a kid, the same calm our child will find when he arrives. While the baby grew, the messages kept coming, switching between forced affection and demands. Even so, I left my phone on silent. Maybe one day I'll reply. Today my priority is different, making sure that when he finally opens his eyes, he finds around him only those who call love home. That late afternoon, he held my hand and whispered, "You don't owe anyone anything. Now it's just us, the ones who truly care." With those words, the weight I carried felt a little lighter. A week later, the past knocked on the door. I opened it and found my mother, surprised, her eyes showing something like regret. My heart wavered, but I didn't give in. "Mom, please don't insist. You're not part of my life, and you won't be part of my child's." She tried leaning on the old idea of family. "Mariana, you can't shut us out like this. This baby is ours too." I took a deep breath. I spent years trying to earn a love that never came. I won't repeat that story with my son. He'll grow up surrounded by real affection, no manipulations, no criticism, no games. Her tears came fast, but they no longer held me. Before any word could reopen wounds, I closed the door. It hurt, but it was freeing. Since then, messages and calls try to break the silence. They can't. My world now revolves around the pregnancy, my husband, and the baby on the way. Every beat of his heart reminds me I chose the right path, the one where love doesn't need to be proven every day, only lived. Have you noticed how sometimes the best way to care for someone is to set boundaries no one understands? In a few weeks, our baby arrives, and every detail has been chosen with love, from the first blanket to the playlist that'll lull him to sleep. While I count the days, I hear voices saying isolating family is selfish. They don't see what I see. a safe harbor where my child will grow without the weight of old wounds and expectations that aren't his. Deciding who crosses our door isn't about pushing love away, but shielding what's still fragile. There will be no room for bitter words or visits that confuse affection with control. It might sound harsh, I know, but for the first time, I don't feel guilt. I feel peace, the same peace I want him to recognize in my arms from day one. They might keep trying to tell me I'm wrong. They might say I'll regret it someday. I accept that risk. Because when my child opens his eyes for the first time, I want him to see a world where safety is the rule, not the exception. I'm not backing down from this choice. If protecting what I love most makes me selfish, so be it. After all, writing the story for the two of us is the most liberating thing I've ever done, and it's only the beginning.